for this community meeting as we discuss the 4 proposals for the land use changes that were submitted back as a part of the SSPA process back in October. My name is Dave.
I'm sorry, David, I'm going to interrupt. Do you want to go ahead and start the presentation?
Oh, yes. Can you guys see that?
There
screen?
You go. It started.
Yeah. Is it full screen?
Oh, it was for a moment, and now it's back to notes and editing mode. There it is, right there. The presentation started, and also I'll take this opportunity, since I interrupted you, David, to let people know that the meeting is being recorded.
Yeah, thank you, Clara. Give me a minute. Let me stop sharing my screen, and just wanted to welcome everyone. My name is David Wilmon. I'm a planner with Fairfax County, and I'm joined this evening by Clara Johnson and Michael Burton, who are also part of the Department of Planning and Development. Tonight, I will be your host for this evening's meeting. But before we get started, we are pleased to be joined by Supervisor John Faust, who would like to say a few introductory words. And so I'll pass it on to him to speak.
Thank you very much. And thank you all for attending the presentation, site-specific plan amendment nominations in the Herndon Innovation area. Those site-specific plan amendment process, it's going to occur every 2 years, and it's created to allow anyone who wants to propose a change to the comprehensive plan for an individual site to have their proposal considered by the community. There are various steps involved before you get to full consideration, but this year the submission period ran from October 3 to the 28th, and we're currently in what we're calling the screening phase. Approximately 70 nominations were submitted countywide. And tonight, staff will introduce 4 nominations that were submitted for the Herndon Innovation area, which is in the Drainesville district, western part of my Drainesville district. There's 3 proposals located just north of the Innovation Center station. And then the 4th proposal that we'll discuss tonight is located on Leesburg Pike, just north of the town of Herndon. Community meetings will be held over the next few weeks to go over the nominations. And following community meetings, the Planning Commission will hold a series of workshops in late February through early March to help determine which of the nominations will be considered for further review. So it's a multi-step process. Your feedback will be used from those meetings to help decide which nominations should be studied further. The board of supervisors will take action in April to determine which of the nominations will advance for further review as potential plan amendments. So this is all a very sophisticated screening process to ensure that we get, good, meaningful, legitimate proposals for plan amendments. After the presentation this evening, we'll all have time to take questions and hopefully provide you with answers. I look forward to your questions, and I am going to turn it back over to David.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for those who have just joined as well. Just a friendly reminder, tonight's meeting is recorded, and so let's get started. The purpose of this meeting, as Supervisor Faust was saying, is to go over the site-specific plan amendment proposals in the Western Drainesville area. The Fairfax County staff, myself included, will be going over briefly what that site-specific plan amendment process is, as well as introduce the nominations submitted in your area. As was briefly mentioned, we'll go over that SSPA process by providing an overview of the comprehensive plan and how they're connected. an overview of the SSPA screening process, as well as next steps. So understanding where we are in the SSPA process and where we'll go next and how that will look moving forward. And then the bulk of tonight's meeting, will be about the 4 local nominations that were just mentioned in the Western Dranesville area. Well, I'll provide a brief overview and some key highlights around the nominations themselves, with 3 being in the north of the Innovation Center, and then the last being on Leesburg Pike, closer to the Loudoun County border up north. After each presentation, we'll open up for some engagement for the folks that have joined us tonight to hear feedback and questions and dialogue. During that process or during the presentations, you're more than welcome to post questions in the chat, and we'll revisit those when we have the Q&A sections. To ensure that we get through all of the nominations and have enough time for folks to provide feedback on each one, there will be limited time for the Q&A process, but most of tonight's meeting will be focused around that as well. So let's get started around the SSPA process. So what exactly is the SSPA process? To begin, for a brief overview about this particular process, its relationship to the county's comprehensive plan and why your feedback is so important, relative to some of the development proposals we will discuss. The SSPA amendment process is an important opportunity for anyone to submit a proposal for a change in the county's comprehensive plan, specifically individuals' properties or a cluster of properties in small areas. Our county's comprehensive plan is a multi-layer document used both by county staff and our elected officials to guide land use decisions across the communities of Fairfax County. The document provides recommendations for how land could be used in the future, how our environmental and cultural resources are protected, and for areas where future growth can accommodate. For this reason, we think of the comprehensive plan as a living document that evolves and changes with time. And this SSPA process represents the first step in considering potential changes to that document. Just some background on the comprehensive plan itself. It is required for every locality in the state of Virginia. The policies within them are not regulatory. However, they offer important recommendations for managing future growth in our communities. Key components within the comprehensive plan are the policy, area plans, as well as the plan map. The policy plan encapsulates land use guidance that applies to every land area within Fairfax County. It can include, for example, policies related to affordability, housing affordability, or environmental protections. There's also the area plan guidance, which provides more detailed policy for specific areas within the county. This could include areas as broad as Reston, Tyson, for example, or smaller geographies in the county, such as Annandale, Bailey's, or Seven Corners. There's also additional elements such as the plan map, which is more reflective of what you may see on the ground today, and visually show us our baseline recommendations. There's also transportation plan maps, public trail maps, and a bicycle network map that has recommendations found in the plan as well. An important component of the recommendations found in the area plan is the county's concept for future development. Simply put, it provides a general framework for most of our thinking about our growth and where most of our growth is encouraged. As you can see from the map, there are a number of different categories color-coded on it. Each of them represents a different set of recommendations for how these areas could grow and develop over time. The eastern part of the county primarily consists of older residential neighborhoods, classified here as suburban neighborhoods, that continue to grow around the Beltway and other major roadways. There's also transit station areas, which encompass metro rail stations, which encourage a mix of use in compact, pedestrian-friendly, and urban form. The comprehensive plan offers specific guidance for each of these areas that staff use when evaluating each development proposal. Now to move forward to the review process, and to really reiterate, we are at the beginning of this review process, and it could be a long process when a new proposal has been submitted for county's consideration. On a broader perspective, the comprehensive plan process is the first stage of the review, and proceeds more detailed review processes such as zoning, actions, and site review. The timeline for development can also vary based on the complexity of the review in each stage. What's important to note is that the guidance offered by the comprehensive plan informs the review at the zoning stage. Zoning applications or development proposals will need to demonstrate how they meet the recommendations in the plan itself. To really help us organize and manage the comprehensive plan amendment projects, planning staff rely on the work program. It is a list of projects that the Board of Supervisors has authorized for staff to work on, and the types of amendments that can be found on the work program vary. It could be broad, such as countywide policies, but our goal for this evening is to discuss the 4 proposals in your community, and for us as staff to learn your thoughts and considerations for each one. In this effort, to help the board determine which ideas should be added to the 2023 work program for evaluation. So looking at the total number of submissions in the SSPA process for the 2020, Dranesville had 6 nominations. In total, the county had 75 nominations submitted, with 70 moving on to screening. You can see that Dranesville got 6 nominations total and how it compares with other supervisor districts. And so this really brings us to the screening phase of the SSPA process. To help us think through the ideas that were submitted, staff screened each proposal or nomination for its merits. We looked at, does this proposal support the county's goals and objectives? Should it be added to the work program? And if so, what considerations should county staff make when we review them? So looking at the planning process for each proposal to really get a sense, again, where we are in that process, we are still at that initial screening phase. So what this really means is that none of the ideas that we've received to date so far have been added to the staff's work program yet. This also means we have not had that chance to fully evaluate these ideas until authorization to do so by the board is given. So for today, there are a number of questions that I'm sure many of you may have had or will have, and we'll ask you to think about during this stage as we go through these nominations. What are your preliminary thoughts on them? What considerations should staff make when looking at proposals? Are there any significant concerns or opportunities that you see with the proposals? Once an item is added to the work program, we analyze each proposal and to be able to provide you with a better understanding of any potential impacts associated with the development proposals. So what happens if a nomination passes screening? If a nomination passes screening, it of course is added to our work program, as I mentioned. Then staff will support the board in prioritizing work across the list. For example, if there are proposals that strongly align with the county's objective or initiatives, they may be evaluated sooner than others. This will include thinking through items already in the work program. What happens if a nomination does not pass the screening process? Well, if the proposal isn't added to the work program. Could a proposal be resubmitted in the next cycle? It can, however, the nominator would need to demonstrate a change in the proposal with significant justification for reconsideration. I should also note that while a proposal may not move forward, it does not mean that a property could not be redeveloped, in the future with its current plan recommendation. So I wanted to zoom out on the timeline around the countywide SSPA process, where we have been, where we are, and where we'll go. In the early fall, from September to October 22nd, there was the advertising period for the nomination process. And then in October, there was the countywide nomination period opening, where applications and nominations were gathered. And in December, the Board of Action to accept those nominations into the screening phase continued. And now we're here today for January and early February, where we're at the screening phase for community meetings for those nominations. And then in February, we will have Planning Commission workshops with the work program in late March and early April of 2023. So in terms of next steps, staff will work to summarize all the feedback we are hearing through our community engagement meetings, not only for this area, but in other areas across the county. And we will invite all of you to attend the Planning Commission workshops beginning February 22nd. And you can see other planning workshops that are throughout in March 2nd, March 9th, and March 15th, if needed. So we've reached the nomination section, but I'll pause for a second to see if there are any questions that were put in the chat, or if any folks have any questions about the SSPA process itself.
I don't see anything in the chat for questions.
Okay. If that's the case, we can go ahead and begin the overview of the nomination process. So for Dranesville, as I mentioned, there were 6 nominations and 6 that moved to the screening phase. Tonight, we'll discuss the 4 within the Western Dranesville area, 3 being north of the Innovation Center, and 1 on Leesburg Pike, close to the border of Loudoun County. There's also 2 submissions on Leesburg, one on the Pimment Hills neighborhood, and then the other nomination in the Spring Hill Road and Dulles Access Road intersection. To start first, our first nomination is in the Innovation Center on the Dulles Green Road. It is located south and east of the Dulles Green Drive, north of the Dulles Access Road, and within a quarter mile of the Innovation Center Metro Rail Station. You can see the nominated site in that's shaded in red, and the parcels highlighted with the yellow dashed line. The nominated site is underdeveloped and is comprised of 2 parcels which are currently vacant. The current plan for this area is mixed-use residential for 16 to 20 dwelling units per acre, with a minimum of 5,000 square feet of community serving use, such as office, retail, or daycare center. Additionally, the county-owned parcel was originally planned for community facilities, but has since been moved elsewhere. The nominator is proposing a consolidation with the county-owned parcel for an approximate 500 multifamily units. They have proposed a portion of the units to be affordable up to 80% of the area median income and up to 100% of those units. They're also flexible for the ground use for support for those community centers. I wanted to quickly show a conceptual map of the proposal, where you can see not only where they have thought about putting the multifamily building, but also the connection to the pedestrian bridge, as well as a shared use path to connect to the Innovation Station, metro station. And as I mentioned, throughout the screening process, we looked at preliminary staff considerations. The nominated site or property is located in the transit station area. And this is a land use classification where the comprehensive plan encourages a mixed use of in a compact, pedestrian friendly urban form within walking distance of the Metro Rail. The nominated property is located in land unit L4, which cites specific development considerations. It recommends that parcels are consolidated and developed as part of a unified plan. It mentions ensuring the preservation and protection of the environmental quality corridors, as well as the resource protection areas. And it also recommends visual impact on existing low-density residential neighborhoods are minimized and a 70-foot substantial buffer of existing vegetation. And so with that, I wanted to pass things off to the nominator and their team to share a few slides and so a few remarks about their proposal.
Good evening.
Great. Thank you so much for having us. This is Adam Cook here, and I'm actually going to turn it over to my partner in crime, David Schneider, here to present for us. Thank you.
Hello, Adam, you able to hear me?
You're a little quiet, but I can hear you.
All right, get a little bit closer? Is that better? Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm David Schneider. I'm a land use attorney with Holland and Knight, working with Peterson Companies here. We're very excited to be before you. David, do I have the ability to share screen?
You should be able to, yes.
Here we go. All right. If I can just get someone to tell me that it's up, it'd be great.
We see it. Thank you.
We
That
can
looks
see it now.
Perfect. The fun logistics of all of this. So we're excited to be before you to present this nomination for an affordable and workforce housing development within the 1/4 mile radius of the Innovation Center Metro Station. As staff said, it's an assemblage of 2 parcels, one owned by Peterson Companies outlined on the screen in green, and one owned by the Board of Supervisors outlined in red. Again, this 11-acre property assemblage is located wholly within the 1/4 mile radius of the Innovation Center Metro Station, but has remained undeveloped. The site has always been planned to be a significant part of the transit-oriented development of this transit station area, the TSA. In 1993, the county anticipated that a significant parking facility for the then future Innovation Center Metro Station would need to be constructed on the property. As the comprehensive plan for this TSA was adopted, the recommendation that this transit station facility be provided on the property was carried forward. However, in 2014, the Board of Supervisors approved a land deal for the newly constructed 2,100 space, 8-level parking garage to serve the rail and bus commuters on the other side of the toll road, on the southern side, not on the property. But that was the size of the garage that was contemplated, 2,100 spaces, 8 levels. The property, as staff said, is currently within the Dulles Green development, which includes 800 garden-style apartments, but this development was not approved with any affordable or workforce units as part of its package. Go to the next slide. The slide, staff showed you this slide already. So instead of the 2,100 space parking garage, we are proposing an affordable and workforce housing development with approximately 500 units. Overall, the FAR proposed is about a 1.0, which we believe to be very reasonable for the proposed affordable and workforce housing use, especially this close to the metro station, as the current guidelines call for between a 2.8 and a 4.0 FAR within the same 1/4 mile of this metro station. This assemblage here is required to achieve this goal because the property is 11 acres, but less than 5 of these acres are actually developable because of the RPA, the resource protection area, which is shown in blue, and our plan shows to fully protect that area. As staff said, this SSPA process is to allow us to be included in the county's work program. It's a very early part of the comprehensive plan amendment process, which will allow us to file a rezoning. So the design will be refined and coordinated with the community during those stages. Now at this early phase, the main point we're trying to make here is that the only way to provide the TOD design that's contemplated in this area while transitioning to the surrounding area is, especially given the resource protection area, is with the proposed assemblage. We also note, as staff said, that there's a planned and fully funded shared use path, which is to be located on site here. and will provide direct access to the metro station. This is an ideal site to provide affordable and workforce housing with that there. I'm going to touch really quickly on county policy. This proposal is essentially straight out of the county's playbook. I'm not going to read all of these to you, but as you can see, it's fully supported by and furthered by numerous county policies. Predominantly, we have the transit-oriented development guidelines and the affordable workforce housing policies. Now, standard TOD guidelines encourage density to be concentrated within the 1/4 mile radius of a metro station. But if you note the bottom right of the Fairfax County policy with just the Fairfax County Economic Success Plan actually says for the county to consider increasing the high density areas to the 1/2 mile radius of a metro station. But we don't need to do that here because we have 5 acres of vacant, fully developable land within a 1/4 mile radius of the metro platform. With respect to workforce and affordable housing, there's no question that there's an immense need for these units in the county, and policies encourage them to be located in these TSAs. I'm going to focus on 2 policies. The top left, which says leverage county land and develop non-traditional partnerships to achieve efficiencies to produce more units, which is exactly what we propose here. And then lastly, the bottom left, the Fairfax County Housing Policy Plan says to give priority for the use of county land as sites for co-location and or development of housing that is affordable at 80% of the AMI and below. And that's again exactly what we propose here. So with the 2,100 space parking garage no longer needed here, and the existing comprehensive plan says to give priority for this land to be used for affordable and workforce housing, we believe that this SSPA proposal is the only way to make this priority a reality. And we look forward to working with all of you during this process. David, I'll go ahead and end there. I know there's I don't know if you're going to.
Yeah, thank you so much. And just a reminder, if you have joined, please make sure you mute your mic so we don't hear any background noise at the time. I would like to open up for about 15 minutes to questions or discussions. If any folks would like to share any comments or have any questions about the site that was just reviewed. And you're welcome to post questions in the chat or also use the reaction feature to raise your hand and I can call on you.
Although I would add, if you can't find any of those features, if you can unmute, that you're welcome to do that at this time as well. Oh, great. There's a question in the chat. How tall will the buildings be?
So in all earnest, we don't know yet. One of the things that we've done is, and if you saw in the design, the goal is to step back so that we understand there needs to be a transition to the residents in the Reflections community and step up towards the metro station. What we don't know, and the main point here is with the assemblage, we have more footprint to spread out in the developable area as opposed to just using this on county-owned land. But the goal is, in our preliminary thoughts, again, at this early stage of the process, we haven't had a fully designed, but the goal is to understand that it will need to step back towards the residents, to the Reflection community, to ordering us, and then step up to per TOD guidelines so that the height is oriented towards the metro station.
And any questions, a fair question. For those of you that are new to the land use planning meeting, this might be your first one.
Yeah, and if there are any questions around the SSPA process as well, feel free to ask those now too. But I'll hold this for another minute or so, and if not, we will move forward to the next nomination. So
I'm
not hearing.
I'm going to assume everybody's just typing their question right now.
Not seeing any, I will go ahead and move forward to the next nomination. So our second nomination in Drainsville is, as you can see, just right next to the one that was just proposed, a little bit out of off there, and it is located north of the Dulles Access Road, and as well as within that quarter mile of the Innovation Center Metro Rail Station. I'm sorry, I just got a question from Mike around it. Mike Olson, will the path go through or around the development? And I can go back to that.
Yeah, while you're going back to the slide, happy to quickly answer that, David. That we are very excited about this path, and it wants to be a celebrated part of our design. The goal is not to hide it or have the development go through it, but to have it be a wonderful amenity and connection point. So our design is intended to fully highlight that accessible path.
Thanks, David. Are there any other questions for this site? Doing a last call.
Although if you do have another question, we are discussing the same area generally for the
Yeah,
next
so-
few nominations, so.
They'll all be yeah,
Yep.
nearby. So the second nomination in the Innovation Center Metro Rail area is north of the Dulles Access Road, and as I was mentioning, within that quarter mile of the Innovation Center Metro Rail Station and adjacent to the Loudoun County border, as you can see from the white line. This nominated site is comprised of 3 parcels, which are highlighted in red, and also bordered by the yellow solid dash lines within land unit L1 and L2 of the Dulles Suburban Center. This nominated site is developed within the Center for Innovation Technology building that exists there and west of the Rock Hill Road. The nomination proposes to increase the maximum intensity to 2.5 FAR between the quarter mile and half mile of the metro station, and then from 4.0 FAR to 5.0 FAR within the quarter mile of the metro rail station. And I also am going to show the conceptual map that was submitted during the nomination proposal, during the application, for you guys to look over, and then also wanted to share the preliminary staff considerations. It is located within that transit station area, so similar to the previous nomination, the comprehensive plan is encouraging mixed uses in a compact, pedestrian-friendly urban form within walking distance of the metro rail area. So some key considerations that rose to the top: the CIT building, which is within that nominated site. The comprehensive plan looks to ensure that it is evaluated prior to development to be considered for its significance, and if preservation or adaptive reuse should be considered. On the environment side, we make sure to ensure the preservation or enhancements of the environmental quality corridors and the floodplain as well. Similar to the previous one, the countywide guidelines for the TOD area transit-oriented development encourages the highest use and intensity closer to those metro rail stations, and really encouraging those transit station areas to reach that land use classification that was mentioned in the concept for future development. And with that, I will pass it to Tony to lead some remarks on his side.
Hey, David, thank you so much. I'm going to steal the screen from you, if I may. Give me a second. I'll pull up a PowerPoint, which I'm hoping you guys can see. Is that visible?
It is not.
All right, let's try again. There.
Still having trouble.
Bear with me a second. There we go. There we go.
We see it.
Got it?
Yep.
Perfect. I'm not going to do the whole screen because, at least for me, typically when I do that, it doesn't go from screen to screen. So I appreciate the opportunity, David and Clara and Michael. Thanks for all that you guys are doing. I know you have your hands full. It is terrific seeing Supervisor Faust and Mr. Olfelder and Mr. Wiles and a number of other friends that I recognize. This is actually a depiction of the western portions of the property. This is Horsepen, which is in Loudoun County. I'll orient you here and rifle through a couple of slides. Here's the property we were just discussing, the Dulles Green Cricket Grounds. Of course, there's Metro. You guys are seeing my second screen, correct?
Correct.
Vicinity map.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
There's the quarter and the half mile. There's the county line. We're at the confluence of course, the Dranesville district, Fairfax, Loudoun, the town of Herndon. As Mr. Olfelder can attest, I've been involved in this project for more decades than I care to recount. I take great pride in, I think, what's possible here, and with the help, frankly, of county leadership, staff, interested residents in Fairfax and Loudoun. This is a really intriguing place. This is an incredibly highly visible and, I think, important economic development quadrant of Fairfax and Loudoun. Obviously has not had much in the way of development in this particular corner. But when you think about now the $6 billion Silver Line having finally opened, thanks to Mr. Faust and others, Dulles Airport, which seems to be very much on the rebound. Of course, the critical intersections of 28, the toll road, and the Greenway. It's really an extraordinary opportunity for, I think, some incredibly high quality development, and I'm frankly glad that it's in the Dranesville district, and we just have to convince Mr. Faust he can't retire. This is a view from the west, kind of looking back toward the east. There's a Loudoun County case that's about to be concluded, I think. We're through the planning staff and planning commission deliberations, a really attractive mixed-use project of modestly lower density than Fairfax, which is up here in the upper right, just to reorient you. That opening picture I showed you was of Horsepen. That's about 8 acres of Horsepen. What you can see in yellow is residential, a village center, hotel, and office. And the type of extensive planning that's been undertaken now for a while in Loudoun really needs to continue to occur in Fairfax, as Mr. Faust has noted. But one thing, a number of things that the ownership of this project has done, I think in a really noteworthy way, as you'll see in a depiction or two here momentarily, is how do we integrate, how do we complement and collaborate in terms of transportation and vehicular connections, pedestrian connections, bicycle connections, and really thoroughfares of greenery, which is what I wanted to show you here. I won't go into much detail. I know I'm only supposed to have 5 slides. I'm going to violate that rule and give you a couple more, but I'll keep it short. There's some really extraordinary opportunities for taking areas now that are not attractive, not really usable, not open to the public, and doing some extraordinary things. I'll just go back to my first graphic, as reflected here, to really make this a pedestrian-oriented anchor at the western area of the site. And that type of creative thinking is really the underpinnings of what I think is possible in Fairfax. This is by no means what we're currently proposing in the sense of building heights or the mix of uses. Honestly, that's part of the deliberation and why we're here this evening to embark on this important process. But what this reflects really here is in Loudoun, through Fairfax and through the very area that we were just talking about, how can we do really interesting and creative things to come up with the appropriate mix of uses, density, complement to rail, pedestrian connectivity that you guys were just discussing, in a way that really enhances not only this property, but the surrounds, and really makes for an interesting, wonderful placemaking where people can come from Dulles Green, off of Metro, come and enjoy some really meaningful open spaces, shop, work, live, recreate. These are some of the kind of critical green spaces that I was alluding to that we want to bring from east to west and frankly west to east As just noted, really the quarter-mile radius includes most of Fairfax, and then really the half-mile radius, most of Loudoun. So while we have two different jurisdictions and a lot of interest from a number of different folks, integrating this into one holistic, really attractive, wonderful place to be just makes all the sense in the world. Again, this is the area that we were just discussing. This is kind of a blow up, David. I think this is what you just showed. Of course, here's Metro. Now it's open to the landing here. Figuring out how to do something really noteworthy in this RPA area, I think, is worth additional discussion and evaluation. We've reviewed some of these concepts with Mr. Faust, Mr. Olsfelder. We've had a number of, frankly, some of your colleagues, David, Claire, and Michael, come out and tour the site probably over a year ago. And this is obviously an environmentally sensitive area, but one much like Horsepen that I just described to the west, that could use, I think, some creative thinking to really do something wonderful there. And all of us who've been through that property, particularly in summertime, you wouldn't walk through there unless you really were somehow immune to ticks. There's an area there that is not particularly helpful in terms of creating a noteworthy exit to this landing. And I think there's some really interesting things that we can do here that would be environmentally sensitive and I think a real enhancement. And here's just some concepts of it there on the right. I'll talk about them and then I'll wrap up. The proposal is pretty simple. I think it's a page and a half. The options that exist today do have a mixed use option, but at a relatively low density. There were some very good reasons why the county adopted up to a 4.0 all office FAR at one point. I think everyone would recognize that with the challenges in the office market and frankly the success that we see in viable, attractive, walkable, mixed use places, Reston Town Center, easy example, of course, just down the street, you really can do something fantastic here. And so the proposal really emphasizes a modest increase in density and really an emphasis on a residential mixed use, which self-evidently, I think, helps with the transportation infrastructure. And of course, that'll be a lot of discussion with the comprehensive plan and ultimately with regard to a rezoning. As the other David just said a few minutes ago, I won't go through chapter and verse, but there are many county policies that really, I think, support a fresh look at this quadrant. And we're excited to participate. This is actually kind of across the street, if you will, a potential rendering of the property that was evaluated just a couple of minutes ago, kind of looking back toward the west and, of course, the Dulles Airport. And really, I think, starting to give a flavor of what some enhancements might look like. This is illustrative in nature, but there was kind of a neat concept of a little tower that you could overlook not only an enhanced RPA, resource protection area, and future building, but actually, if you were standing up there where that pink person is, you could be looking over Dulles Airport, which I think would be pretty cool. This just gives you another sense of that. This is all really subject to a lot of dialogue, but the critical confluence, again, of the Metro rail system in this landing, the development that was just talked about, what is possible here, how that connects to the portions of Loudoun County as you head to the west, of course, Herndon to the north, I think all merit a really ongoing, interesting, and hopefully fruitful discussion. I think we can take and create something along the order of what's been proposed in Loudoun County, do something really noteworthy that I think would be a legacy for Mr. Olsfelder and Mr. Faust. So I will wrap up and just go back to that vicinity map, and I can stop the screen share if you'd like, David, and be happy to answer any questions.
Appreciate that. And yeah, I would like to open it up to questions. Folks, if you would like to post in chat, unmute your mic, raise your hand. We are happy to take questions as they come.
David, really quickly, I'm gonna note that there was a leftover question from the previous previous discussion, will the path, will that path affect the other planned path from Reflection? This is from Mike Holme. Excuse me.
Right, and I don't know if there's anybody on the call that there are multiple access points to Reflection is what it sounds like, and
David Schneider again, well, happy to be back again. No, there's a planned path in our design and is to help accommodate there's a points coming out off the cul-de-sac to the north, and then also connecting through the other RPA. And more reason why this assemblage is needed is to protect that path. We need more developable area so that the height can transition.
thanks. Then any questions about this proposal? And really, and that was a lot of there are a lot of development concepts that were shared that are tied together, both partly in Loudoun County, the other part in Fairfax County. So if there are questions about that, I see a question. How does this proposal relate to the possible reconstruction, repurpose of the rock quarry across the street?
Great question. I don't know who asked it, but Clara, I was actually very much involved with the Godelski family with the quarry. We oversaw a comprehensive plan amendment and a really complicated but very exciting rezoning of that 350-acre, 60-year-old quarry. Ultimately, the quarrying operations itself has actually stopped. It was part of the agreement with Loudoun County. They are actually filling portions of the property, and in fact, at some point are going to let the water, right now they've been pumping water out for decades, let the water start to fill up. Hopefully we don't get any rains like California did, but a couple of those ought to enhance that pretty quickly. The center of that property and that quarrying operation is about 50 acres. So subsumed as part of that town center is about a 50-acre lake. And then exactly the type of concepts that you guys have overseen for many years: office, residential. There's a town center component. There's hotel. There's a urban school and lots of different things that I don't have at my fingertips. But that whole concept, in concert with what we just reviewed, is just a complete makeover, if you will, of this toll road and 28 corridor. And I think what's possible in that area. I mean, that's a challenged area if you drive up and down Old Ox, as we know. And so it's really interesting to me to see what's possible there with the opening of the metro, and I think now the rebound of Dulles Airport.
Could we bring up the map that showed, I think, Tony, you had an image with rings that might show I think that showed the extent of where the former quarry is.
Going back, this is one of the reasons I loathe Teams, is you have to go through all your windows to figure it out. I think that's the one you're talking about.
Okay, yes.
So
maybe
here,
it doesn't go as far north, but yeah.
So this is really the quarry area, Clara, that you're just asking about and that I was just alluding to.
Yeah.
There's quite a bit of development. This is really intended to be a town center fronting Route 28. There's a mix of residential and other uses here to the south and west. There's been a lot of discussion about this ownership actually before you this evening, which had the Loudoun County property for a number of years before they purchased the Fairfax County site, were the ones who are intimately involved in not only constructing, this is the only privately funded interchange on Route 28, but they recognize that having what I call the NASCAR raceway of the old alignment of Innovation Avenue, this is not a grid. This is not transit oriented. This was really an impediment to development east to west. So they, in addition to building that interchange, they actually constructed realigned Innovation Avenue, which I think really opens up the possibility for some cool things here. And it's very much consistent with what Loudoun contemplates to the north of Innovation Avenue.
And really, there are details in the Fairfax County side and the comprehensive plan about what a grid of streets, really that east-west Innovation Avenue allows this area. It kind of establishes the beginning of a grid, which is, I think, what you were saying. Thank you for bringing this grid up. And when we get to the next item, that's also on this slide. So you can really see that we're talking about this, a lot of different proposals, and it's important to think about how they relate. And I'm appreciating the questions about that. The next question says, one slide shows a road on the lower left heading over the toll road. Is that road in any plans or just a concept? And if that's the bridge I'm thinking of, I'm not sure which graphic it was. Was it one of your graphics, Tony?
Probably. Let me just make sure that we're looking at the same thing. I think the road might be. So this, I don't know if this was the. I don't know.
No, it
Ask the
wasn't.
question.
It was a different graphic that showed it quite clearly, curving and going into Loudoun County.
This one, John?
No,
This is the bridge over the toll road.
Bridge over the toll road.
By where the CIT building is.
Oh, this might be it. I'm sorry. No, that's not it.
No. What about 3? Yeah.
That's not it. I mean, this shows the Fairfax line. I don't think that's
yeah,
what you guys
that
were
yeah,
referring to.
no.
So let me just talk about, I'm assuming, John, we're talking about Davis Drive,
Yeah,
if you will.
It's in the plan. It's in the plan for a future vehicle crossing of the toll road from was it Sunrise Valley? What is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
It's right there where it is, and then it curves to the left side of the current CIT building.
That's correct. And lands in Loudoun.
And lands in Loudoun County is how it's planned currently.
Yes.
And I think you have to look to both the transportation plans in Loudoun County and Fairfax County to see both pieces of it. But that was the topic of a lot of coordinated planning at the time that this current area plan was written. So that's a good catch, a good question. But you can see there really isn't a way for local people in the local area to get to the other side of the toll road other than going all the way over to Centerville Road or trying to make their way to Route 28. So we're wanting to give another north-south alternative. And I think there are just a couple missing links, but you can really go almost all the way to 66 from this with that bridge without getting on Centerville Road or Route 28. And this would be for local trips so that people can move around to the local area businesses. And I think
it was considered to be a critical part of the planning when several years ago, when we looked at the replanning or for the area, particularly south of the toll road. So it's an important connection.
Yeah, I think the only comment I'll make on that, because John was head of the task force at the time, I think, when that was really.
Well, I was on it. I wasn't head of it.
I think one of the points that I would make is that while as it crests from Fairfax to Loudoun, the Loudoun plans actually do accommodate that right of way. So that's still contemplated by Loudoun County as well.
Yes. And that was a lot of conversation about that.
There are other questions. I can't see the chat room at the moment.
I can't type very fast. The map that I was referring to, I think, showed the cricket grounds in the lower corner, and I'm sorry I didn't catch what map it was. That's it, I think. Yeah.
That's
Okay, this is a great question. This is, I think, not a part of the plan.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, I misunderstood. Are you talking, sir, about this road in this area?
Correct.
Where my arrow is? Yeah.
Right.
what's currently contemplated, as you saw in the previous design, can't tell exactly where it's kind of cul-de-sac, but this is not in the Fairfax County plan. And I think the current plan for this Cricket area calls for the road to terminate probably in about that area, and then go back. So there's not in Fairfax a contemplated western connection. I'm sorry, I got misdirected. I thought you were talking about over the toll road
No.
here.
That's fine. I appreciate that. I was on the same task force that John was, and
Right.
I do remember talking about that.
Well, I remember John being the head of it, so I guess my
Well,
memory
I
isn't
was,
so
I
great.
didn't, I didn't head the task force. I actually, I was a member of the task force. I did not head that task force. Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Claire,
Don't
are there
blame,
other questions? I can't see the chat room at the moment.
Not yet, but we can keep
All right.
going if anybody would like to unmute for any other questions about anything they've seen. And
This is John Pass. That last road we looked at, how does that play into this comp plan proposal? Is it being considered when are you asking us to consider it when we're asked to consider this comp plan proposal, or is it, it's on the drawings, but it's not part of what is being considered?
Mr. Faust, a couple quick things. No, we did not ask for you guys to consider that road as part of our SSPA nomination. Obviously, we spent a lot of time discussing that option, and that road wouldn't really work with the application that was reviewed a half hour ago anyway. So no, we did not include that as part of the SSPA. If you guys want to discuss it, of course, we're happy to do it. But I think our view was to really just focus on the density and the mix of uses.
Good, okay.
all right, well, if anybody thinks of any questions, we can consider them during the next discussion portion. All right, go ahead, David.
Thank you, Clara, and thank you everyone for your questions so far. So the next nomination is the last one in the pair of three within the Innovation Center. This nomination is located north of Innovation Avenue and west of Rock Hill Road and east of the Loudoun County boundary, as you can see from here. And it is within the vicinity of the Innovation Center Metro Rail Station. To the east of this is the Riviera at the Innovation Center, where Loudoun County has plans for that mixed use. And to the north and south of this nominated site is also a resource protection area subject to the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Ordinance. The nominators propose revisions to the comprehensive plan guidance to allow predominantly residential development with some ground floor non-residential use, but without an overall change to the total density. Based on this is the conceptual map that they submitted for the nomination application. And with this conception plan, you can see that they're proposing a 5-story multifamily residential building with that ground level non-residential use and structured parking in the southeast portion of the site and stacked and traditional townhomes in the north portion, along with a park space. The preliminary staff considerations around this site, as I mentioned, it is within that transit area. The connectability and the walkability for this area, it's a priority to be established plan in the pedestrian network, and it is needed to support the walkability and the access to transit in the area. In terms of preservation, as I mentioned, to the north and south of this site are resource protection areas, which are subject to that Chesapeake Bay Preservation Ordinance. and then that connection with the countywide guidelines for TOD development. It really encourages the highest land use intensity closest to the metro station. With that, I will pass it to the nominators, the Stout and Teagan. And Richard, you might be muted if you are speaking.
Sorry. Miguel, if we could move to the first substantive slide. Okay, very good. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm Rick Stout with the Stout and Teague Company. And we've been involved with this property for nearly 20 years now. What we're trying to do in our proposal is meet all the top priorities of the comprehensive plan, and get this project to a point that it can get started. And we think with the amendment we put forward, we could be in a position to bring this in for rezoning and get started fairly rapidly. We'd accomplish the plan by providing a significant recreational area, park, standing between a mid-rise building and which would be closest to the metro station, and a series of townhouses in the northern portion of the site, which is beyond the half-mile radius from the metro stop. This approach that we're proposing would limit any commercial intrusion into the existing residential communities that exist there, which are basically Dulles Green and the Rock Hill townhouses that are marked on the property. The properties we own extend into Loudoun County, and we are paying attention to what's happening there. We have a comp plan. The county, Loudoun County, has a new comp plan that will call for mixed use, but predominantly residential use. And at the moment, they have yet to enact a zoning ordinance to allow that those rezonings to go forward. Our proposal is essentially 8 acres, and it's in substance all of the non-RPA land in Land Bay L3. So all the dry portions of the land are accounted for. And we think one of the benefits here is the RPA itself acts as a natural barrier to separate the more intense uses planned to the south, and creates a natural area for predominantly residential to the north. I would point out this plan is actually quite similar to, in many ways, to one that we just completed at the Huntington Metro Station, which is a combination of townhouses and mid-rise buildings, and included the dedication of a park quite a few years ago. And with that, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Miguel to talk about some of the details of this concept. It is, of course, just the concept.
Thanks, Rick. Good evening. I'm Miguel Irola. I'm with Hort Copeland Macht. We're the architects and planners for this nomination. Before I move off of this slide, I just wanted to show the proximity to the Innovation Center Metro Station and that quarter-mile and half-mile catchment area, which the site is partially into that half-mile catchment. The site, as Rick had mentioned, is kind of located between two RPA's zones, and it's really part of a contiguous hydrological system which goes into Loudoun County as well. In Loudoun County, it's referred to as a floodplain and a buffer, not necessarily an RPA. The site is partially wooded with a little bit of a parking area kind of on the southern end of it. It does confront along Rock Hill Road is the Dulles Green apartments. So it does create a small little double-sided completion of certainly Rock Hill Road in this portion of the area. Now, for orientation, north is to the left on this concept on this concept plan. So this proposed concept plan calls for a residential community comprised of various building types. Central Green, which will serve as the focal point and the primary organizing feature. The larger building is a wrapped garage apartment building with internal courtyards. It has access to the garage from the west, and this building is mostly within the half-mile catchment from the metro station. Additionally, as many as mentioned, there's some townhomes that are proposed on the northern end of the site. These are intended to have rear-loaded garages as well. And between the apartment building and the townhomes are stacked townhomes, which is that building right to the south there. They also have rear-loaded garages. So in terms of the big picture and the big idea I should mention is that the central green space, it will be the primary focal amenity for this community. There are also smaller open spaces which are being proposed, including a possible dog park and a residential mews within the townhome portion. All buildings are oriented towards either green spaces or to streets. They generally front onto them and they present themselves that way. There's some ground floor activating uses that are proposed for the apartment building, which kind of is shown in that hatched area. Has good visibility from Rock Hill Road and into the central green space as well. There's sidewalks that are proposed throughout the development. Rock Hill Road will provide the primary pedestrian access to the metro station. I should also mention some people have talked about it too with regards to Loudoun County. This street in particular has the ability to ultimately connect to Davis Drive in the future into Loudoun County. So we're not precluding that. We're just kind of working it in within the plan. Now I'll turn it over to Rick for some closing remarks.
Yeah, thanks, Miguel. Yeah, what we're trying to do here is make what we think are fairly minor changes to the comp plan by recognizing that there's a limited amount of space, and if we're going to keep the buildings at a scale that somewhat resembles what's in the neighborhood, it's going to be difficult to execute the plan if it includes an office facility, an office element, and it will tend to make the project both more difficult to execute financially, and it will again violate the idea of trying to keep the commercial uses from encroaching on what is currently an entirely residential community. So I think that's the central piece. We're happy to answer any questions that we can at this point. And I think that's where we are.
Thanks, Richard. And we do have a question, we do have a question in the chat from CJ. Rock Hill Townhome owner here. Are there considerations to widen the Rock Hill Road to support this concept?
We're not proposing that at this particular time, certainly. There were traffic studies run back when the comp plan was put in place, and this will not change any of in fact, it will reduce the traffic flow compared to the inclusion of office within the project. But we are not proposing changes to Rock Hill Road with this plan.
I would have to look up the planned what for the Fairfax County. I guess most of this Rock Hill Road portion is Fairfax County, and currently in the comprehensive plan, it is planned for improvement. I can, before the end of the meeting, look, pull up that graphic. I believe it's, gosh, trying to see, and we might have somebody here from transportation that could chime in.
Well,
They have that.
Mike, I can do it if you
Sure.
want.
Yeah, thank you, Mike.
My name is Mike Garcia. I'm with the Fairfax County Department of Transportation. So I've worked on this area for better part of a decade, I think. I will say that in the comprehensive plan, we have a couple uses that are options for Rock Hill Road. We, as the first and current use, we see it as a 2-lane improved facility. So some of the lanes on Rock Hill Road are 10 feet, a little substandard than what we would particularly want, just for a little bit more of a modern day type road. It is not our intention to kind of improve the road to accommodate any sort of additional through traffic. It's meant to be a local serving street. What we put on the comprehensive plan for this road was a wide sidewalk on the east side to kind of buffer for the residents. As we were aware and made aware during our most recent comprehensive plan amendment that there's plenty of school buses that actually pick up kids along this road, and actually having a wider sidewalk would actually help them out a lot. So taking that into account, and also since you're really close to the metro station, it would facilitate pedestrian movement to it. So that's the plan for the east side. And on the west side, we actually kind of dubbed it a bike boulevard type street because the WNOD is about a mile plus north, that we could have a 2-way type bike facility on the west side of the road. So that's kind of the plan, at least as the first plan for Rock Hill Road. There is an option in there that says if we can't make any sort of other improvements, for example, Davis Drive or Shaw Road are not extended south into the site, that this road could be improved to 4 lanes. But I think what we are going to try to do is everything possible to keep it as a 2-lane locally serving road.
Thank you for that, Mike.
okay. And I will say we are, and there's an oversight on my part, we do assume that the northern parcel, VDOT, when Dulles Green came in, widened Rock Hill Road on the southern portion of the site. But when you get up to where the townhouses are showing, we still own to the center line of the road. And we would expect, they're showing right there a piece that we would expect would go back to the county. And we will cooperate, of course, with any program that is necessary to get the sidewalks to a standard that works for the community.
And I should also just add to that you're right, Rick, that small little rectangular area that I'm kind of highlighting there, it assumes that it would be kind of a dedication back to Rock Hill Road. And also you can see that kind of beige looking sidewalk is a widened sidewalk to accommodate the bikeway, as was mentioned before.
Great discussion. Thank you for the question and for all of the responses.
Are there any other questions for this nomination? If not,
I was just going to add, for anybody on the call, if you're still processing all this new information and you think of a question or something you'd like to let us know later, we will provide you with our contact information. There will be a way for you to write to us, find us after the meeting as well.
I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing just in case we want to go back to
appreciate
questions.
it. I wanted to go forward with the last nomination for tonight that we'll be reviewing. This nomination is located south of Leesburg Pike and west of the intersection of Sugarloaf Road. The nomination has a non-continuous site, as you can see here, highlighted in red with the yellow dash lines. That contains a stormwater facility. The areas to the south and east of this site are planned and developed for residential development at 0.5 to 1 dwelling units per acre. In the areas to the west and north of this site is planned for residential use at 2 and 0.5 dwelling units per acre. The nomination proposes an affordable independent living facility with up to 90 units in a 5-story building, and also retain the church building and approved but yet to be built nursery and childcare, which you can see on the next slide on their conceptual plan, where they have an existing church and cemetery, and then also the approval for the expansion of the church, the telecommunications facility and nursery school and childcare use as well. Similar to the other ones, there were the preliminary staff considerations around this was looking at the concept for the future development. For this area, it's within the suburban neighborhood, which contains a broad mix of allowable residential densities, styles, parks, and open space, and contains the county's established residential neighborhoods. They're considered to be stable areas of little to no change. So some considerations that preliminary staff considerations that surrounded this was preservation around the Dranesville Methodist Church, as it's listed as an inventory for historic sites. The compatibility, when we're looking at infill development within residential use, specifically suburban neighborhoods, it should be of compatible use, type, intensity, and ensure reduced impacts to the surrounding neighborhoods should not occur. And then lastly, looking at the housing, how this would expand housing opportunities through the development of affordable housing, affordable senior living options in a faith community partnership. And so I wanted to pass this on to Sarah to share some additional points around this, and I'll stop sharing my screen.
Thanks, David. See if I can bring this up. Is everyone seeing that now?
Yes.
Great. Thanks, David. I'm Sarah Mariska. I'm an attorney with Odin Feldman and Pittleman, and with me tonight are Judith Cabelli as well as Camilla McAfee with Wesley Housing. We appreciate this opportunity to talk preliminarily about the proposal. If I can get my slides to advance. There we go. As David mentioned, this site is about 8 acres, and it has been home to the Dranesville United Methodist Church since the construction of the original sanctuary in 1852. So we have been part of the community for a long time, and the church has processed a number of zoning applications. Most recently in 2019, the church amended their special permit, which now permits up to 400 seats in the sanctuary, childcare for up to 99 children, a cemetery, a columbarium, and a telecommunications facility. On this slide, which I know is a little bit hard to see with the black and white, you can see here the existing church as it is constructed today. And in 2019, there was contemplation of some additional construction in the future and some additional parking along here. And then in this vicinity is the columbarium, cemetery, and then some telecommunications facilities. So Wesley, which is a very experienced provider of affordable housing, has been in discussions with the Dranesville Methodist Church, and what we are thinking about is a modest, independent, affordable facility in this portion of this site that is currently vacant. We have looked at the possibility of about 90 units in a 5-story building. And as we've looked at it to date, we would remain outside of an existing conservation area. And we have looked at locating the building towards Leesburg Pike and making sure that we are providing substantial setbacks from surrounding properties. As everyone has discussed, we are very early in this process, so we certainly look forward to questions and comments as we go through the county's discussion time. I know Camilla is on the line. Camilla, I don't know if you want to say a few words about kind of how you guys have been approaching this site and your relationship with the church. I think that might be some helpful context.
Sure, of course. Thanks, Sarah. Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Camilla McAfee. I'm the president and CEO of Wesley Housing. We are a almost 50-year-old nonprofit affordable housing developer that is located in Fairfax County. We've developed over 2,300 units that we currently own and operate, about 20% of which are affordable senior housing properties. We most recently have developed a property in Drainsville district at the former Lewinsville School Center site in partnership with the county. That is a similarly sized senior affordable housing project at 82 units. It's called the Falstead. We were approached by the church as a reference from some other faith-based institutions in which we're in partnership with, both in the county and outside in Alexandria and other jurisdictions. We recently went through a SSPA with another faith-based institution in Fairfax, similar process. A lot of churches have found opportunities to co-develop with affordable housing providers because there are mutual and compatible priorities in serving their constituents and the general communities that they serve, as well as opportunities to partner for services for the residents of these facilities. Wesley not only has a robust development and property management arm, but we also provide resident services for all of our communities, both senior and family. In particular, at this site, we would anticipate similar service providing. I just wanted to clarify the relationship with the church. We are not yet in formal contract with the church, but we did seek out the opportunity to be their agent to present this on their behalf through this SSPA process as it was provided through the timing that was allowed. Thank you. Take any questions as well.
Yeah, I'll definitely like to open it up to questions for folks in the chat. If you are able to unmute yourself and ask questions or post them directly.
As people might be typing questions, I'll just elaborate a little bit on what Camilla had mentioned, which is that, and this is really a preview of coming attractions for Supervisor Faust and Commissioner Ohlfelder. But we are almost 2 weeks away from a Planning Commission public hearing on one of the projects that Camilla mentioned, which is a very similar project whereby we are proposing a affordable independent living facility adjacent to the First Christian Church of Falls Church. So as Camilla said, this has been a true partnership, and we look forward to the opportunity to do that on this site as well. But if there's any questions, we're happy to take them.
And as staff, we notified surrounding property owners and civic associations, and I wanted to check to see if there is anybody from this neighborhood on the call still. I think we had a few people drop off at this point in the meeting. If anybody's willing to identify themselves as just living in the neighborhood, I promise I won't make you say anything more. But I wanted to check to see if we're reaching folks. Although I'm willing to believe that it's partially a shy crowd, but okay. I had a question about the property that has the house on it, the house structure on it. I understand that because it's common ownership, it was included as a part of the proposal. Is there a need for that property as a part of the proposal?
Claire, I would just add that I have learned through past comprehensive plan processes is that you can never add later. You can only start with kind of the maximum in terms of the amount of property and the number of units. So I think I'm always thinking about including everything that is within the church's control when we go through this process. We certainly don't have specific plans for changing that use, but I always include everything for purposes of discussion.
Okay. And is there, and I guess I'll ask, thank you for that. That makes sense to me. Is it currently housing for the church, or is it just I guess
you know, I don't know. I don't know if it's used by the church for housing for the minister, but you might know more than I do actually on that front.
I believe it is, but we'd have to clarify.
That's my understanding, but yes, I didn't want to commit to that.
Right.
This is John Oldfelder. I have a question. Wesley Housing, how many units are you currently maintaining in Fairfax, and how many are in the works additional?
Oh, Mr. Oldfelder, you're getting me the exact number. I think it's about 800 or 900 in Fairfax County. Currently, with the recent delivery of our Arden project, 126 units. And in the works, we have a number of projects, including the 95 units at First Christian Church. Judith, help me out. There are a couple of other projects that are very preliminary.
Okay.
But not under.
It's a good number. Wesley is working hard to help.
Thank you.
Okay.
I also, oh, go ahead, Clara.
No, I was just going to say that it looks like there might be a comment in the chat, but okay, yeah. Thank you for that. The chat, it says Great Falls Citizens Association may have comments on this proposed project, but this will require discussion. Got it. Thank you for that note. And I was going to add that this meeting will have, since it's recorded, we'll have the opportunity to post it. And so we hope that this gets more widely shared so that people can see the discussion. And then we'll, of course, keep open the opportunity to provide comments.
Let me add on that Great Falls comment. This is John Oldfelder. Even though the church site is not in Great Falls, it's across Route 7 from an area of Great Falls. And Great Falls has for many years taken an interest as to what goes on to that site because it's a high site. And when the bell tower, cell tower went in, we were involved with that as well. And the Great Falls Citizens Association was involved with that as well. So they take an interest in sites that are adjacent to the Great Falls area because they do visually and in other ways impact the residents of Great Falls.
Thank you, John.
So looks like there's an unfamiliar name, but I wanted to let you know that Graham Owen, who's posted a document, he is with county staff. That is a survey from county staff asking how we did, and there's an opportunity to provide comments. So.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that was posted before folks started to drop it. Also make sure that there was permission for someone to post that in chat. Were there any other questions around this site development or any of the other sites that we talked about tonight?
Well, these sites are a big deal. I mean, particularly the ones over at Innovation Station. These are major projects and potential development, and we're talking density, we're talking environmental impacts, and we're talking transportation-related issues. So it's important that people pay attention, and it's important that people speak up, particularly the people over on the Herndon side who are the current residents, and what they think and how it might impact them.
John, I think that's a really great point, and I wanted to mention, so when we talk about speaking up, also opportunities to speak up, and so just wanted to share that for the next planning commission, the first planning commission workshop will be on Wednesday the 22nd. Wednesday, February the 22nd at 7:30 p.m.
Yeah.
And that will be an opportunity for folks to go out and voice their thoughts and opinions as well. And then there are also other community engagement meetings countywide, which can be found on that SSPA website too for the screening process.
Are any of these SSPA nominators going to go out and talk to anybody in the community prior to some of those meetings? Are they going to hold meetings within the area with some of the residents that are close by, or whomever that would have a more direct interest in these nominations?
So that is a great question. I've been in contact with a few nominators, and they've each have taken a different approach, whether on how they're engaging, but I'll also let them speak for themselves if they would like to. But from what I've been hearing from them, they have been engaging with certain communities that are already established in the area and that are known, that have made their presence sort of and easy to reach out to and have.
I think it's important because we have these series of upcoming meetings. For example, the Planning Commission workshops, which you just spoke of in February. If people haven't heard or haven't had an opportunity to hear more directly and to ask questions in a more local kind of meeting of the nominators, they may not show up. And I want to make sure that they have been made aware and had an opportunity to hear about these things so that they can, if they want to, make their comments known at an appropriate time.
And I'm also seeing some chat around accessibility to the survey. Please let me know in chat if you can't have access to it, and we'll work our way around it. And Tony, I think you were going to speak.
Yeah, no, to John's good question. I'd be happy to follow up with Ben Wiles or staff if you guys would like, and just give us a short list of Dulles Green or the communities, obviously north, the representatives of the communities north of the stations. Be happy to reach out to them, sir.
Thank you. That's important.
Ben, I'm going to send you a follow-up note.
All right.
Claire, I wanted to pass it to you to see if there were any other remarks you feel like we should make.
No, I'm sure you were about to also say thank you for coming out tonight. It looks like there might be a problem for people, non-county attendees, with opening that survey link. And so I think what we'll try to do is to email that link to attendees, and we'll certainly post it on the SSPA website.
Yeah.
And so stay tuned and please, I'll volunteer David. Here's his phone number. Here's his email address. I noticed he included mine as well. Please contact us if you have any questions about the projects, about how to participate, about how to share this with your neighbors. We would welcome hearing from you. That's all I had. Thanks.
Thank you. I wanted to see if Supervisor Faust had any closing remarks as well.
No, I want to thank everybody who participated. I think it was a very good meeting, and I'm excited about the process. I think we're going about it the right way with, basically taking small bites and getting us to a point where we can decide whether we really want to take some of these proposals seriously, and we will. I mean, many of these proposals will get to the work program. I'm not going to predict they're going to get approved because I can't predict that, but I just think that we're on a good path. And the one problem that we could have is lack of community participation. And so we've just got to pound out the word and make sure people know what's going on and understand what we're asking of them, how they can play a role, how this potentially could impact them if it goes forward. It's, you know, I just think it's more difficult than a rezoning, people tell this is what we're going to do. We're talking about plans and it's harder to get people to engage, but it's just as important, if not more so, the planning process. So anyway, we'll keep after it. We'll do everything we can from my office to get the word out, and I know staff will. And we will look to community leaders to help us, HOAs, civic associations, churches, whatever organization you have. Please help us communicate.
Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you the nominators for presenting, and thank you Clara and Michael for staff support as well as the support from the Department of Transportations. The recording, we'll see if it will be available. If it will be available on the SSPA website. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you guys. Great
Thank you.
job.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks everyone who participated.